clothes. Got a question?
It's a beautiful day on the South Strand. Welcome to Conversations with the Hoff. I'm Steve Hoffman, your host, and with me in the studio today are Randy Oporowski and Trip Detmering.
Hello, hello.
We also have a special guest with us today on our call-in line, Representative Jordan Pace from the South Carolina Freedom Caucus. Jordan represents the Carolina House District 117, and he is the current chairman of the South Carolina Freedom Caucus, a position that he assumed in 2024. A lifelong South Carolinian and a resident of Berkeley County, Representative Pace has built his public service career around the principles of limited government, fiscal responsibility, and government transparency. That sounds pretty good to me. He currently works in the real estate business. So, Representative Pace, how's it going there in Columbia with the Freedom Caucus these days?
It's doing pretty good. You know, it's an election year. It's filing for running hasn't quite closed yet. So I think a lot of the members are on their best behavior as far as trying to vote the way that they campaigned. We'll see if that continues when we get to the budget. But thus far, it's been not terrible compared to last year.
Yeah, that's great. We'll get into the specifics a little later on, but why is there a South Carolina Freedom Caucus, Legislative Freedom Caucus? What's your focus?
Yeah. So if your listeners are familiar with the Congressional Freedom Caucus in Congress, that's kind of where the idea germinated. There were 13 original members. They started in late 2022, and had originally most of this group had been meeting in Josiah Nagelson's office for probably a year or two prior, just trying to get together, pray together, strategize. They were the most conservative people in the House, often marginalized in the Republican caucus because they would stand on principle and not budge from those conservative principles. So that was the idea. Those folks found out that the Freedom Caucus network was just starting up in 2022, got connected with them and got kind of formalized that connection with the State Freedom Caucus network, which some guys from the Club for Growth and the House Freedom Caucus itself in Congress got started. So that was the origin. And the goal really is just to support each other and stand firm on what we campaigned on. Yeah. Most of these Republicans, myself included, campaign on the things you mentioned earlier: limited government transparency, shrinking the size of government, cutting spending, those good things. And for some reason, we just never do it in Columbia, or rarely do it in the time we've had.
Yeah, I get the emails from the National State Freedom Caucus, your association. So how many states do you think now have an actual Legislative Freedom Caucus?
I think we're up to 14. Actually, they launched one yesterday. In West Virginia. I don't remember how many Andy told me they had, like numbers-wise, but I'm pretty sure that's the 14th. Their goal is to have one in every state. We even have one in Illinois, believe it or not. They're quite a minority out there in Illinois, but they get a lot of stuff done. They throw a lot of monkey wrenches in the plans of the crazy socialist stuff there.
Yeah, I see that in your platform, or your focus, primarily to defend liberty. Also, you advocate for limited and efficient government, and you resist erosion of our personal freedoms. That sounds a lot like my fundamental principles of limited government, individual and economic freedom. Oh, and by the way, you're surrounded by three libertarians during this podcast. But don't worry, we're mostly peaceful.
Yeah, we do live by the non-aggression principle. So
I did
Right,
want to
that's
ask, ever since I met Steve Hoffman when I first got involved with the Libertarian Party here in Horry County, he's been very clear that you are super awesome and you're the most pro-liberty member of the entire state house. And I listened to a couple of your interviews and leading up to this podcast, and I was kind of shocked about your story of meeting Ron Paul as a teenager and how it changed your worldview. And I had to do a double take. In one of them, you mentioned meeting Ron Paul and reading him led to you reading Ludwig von Mises, Murray Rothbard, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Ralph Raico, Tom Woods, Scott Horton, all these major liberty figures. If you could kind of tell that story of how you went from like a Paul Wolfowitz teenage neocon to like a Ron Paul Republican.
Yeah. I grew up in Spartanburg in the upstate of South Carolina, which, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, was labeled by the Republican Party as the most conservative county in the country. And with South Carolina being the first in the South primary, literally every Republican runner for president came through my hometown.
Oh.
So as a teenager, as a kid through teenager, I'd Rudy Giuliani and Jeb Bush, like everybody came through there. And so that was just kind of my default setting was, George W. Bush, good, go glass the Middle East, that'll solve our problems, kind of default mode. And then I got freshman year of college. I was at a South Carolina student legislature event. So it's like a mock legislature in Columbia. It's actually the first time I argued a bill on the floor of the House was at this event. And Ron Paul was the keynote speaker at the dinner.
Uh-huh.
I guess they couldn't find anybody else. No, I never heard of this guy. He hadn't run for president since '88. It was before he ran in 2007. Before he launched, I guess he was putting that together. And after the dinner, I went out in the lobby and just talking to him because he was saying stuff that like my core convictions were about, but he was saying, we don't need to invade all these countries and talking about sound money and gold. So I talked to him for about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes in the lobby, just me and him. He didn't know who I was. I never heard of him. And it was really profound. So fast forward to the summer of 2024, he came and spoke at an event in Orlando that I was at, like a Young Americans for Liberty thing. And in the kind of staging area, I got to go back there and talk with him and tell him that story of, hey, I'm sure you don't remember me, but you had this conversation with me 20 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago. And now I'm chairman of the Freedom Caucus in South Carolina House, trying to accomplish these things and aligning with what I would consider like biblical liberty principles. And he was appreciative of that. I enjoyed getting to tell him that story.
I saw you on Twitter. You had a picture with him from 2024. I wanted to ask you one follow-up on that. What led you into the world of like Mises and Rothbard and some of those other even more hardcore liberty thinkers than Ron Paul? Was that just part of the process the year or two after you met him in college?
Yeah, I mean, he basically said, go read these books, and not all of them, but I think he told me Mises, and I think he said Tom Woods. Tom Woods had just come out with a book. I think it might have been Rollback. It was either Rollback or Meltdown, and he had talked about that book. So I went and found it, and I found Tom Woods' podcast, which I probably listen to 3 or 4 times a week for the last 15 years. So that was just kind of the entryway, and then I go from Mises to Rothbard and Hoppe and like all the rest.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. Most of us here are followers of the Austrian School of Economics, which makes sense. So it's time we start to talk about some of the specifics. What are your priorities for this particular legislative session as far as bills are concerned?
Well, the caucus generally has a fairly extensive long-term priority list that we're trying to do, and actually that's what I mean by it kind of been an unusual year this year, because we've got a couple of them passed through the House. One of them was judicial reform, which if your listeners aren't in South Carolina, you probably never heard it. And maybe even if they are, South Carolina is a unique way of selecting our judges, where the legislature votes on them. The governor really has nothing to do with it, and even more distinctly, there's a committee called the JMSC of senators and representatives that screens, and I say that screens with heavy quotation marks. They basically pick them, the candidates for judge. Now, here's the issue: about 40% of our legislature are lawyers, so they're lawyer legislators, and I think like 90%, maybe higher, of the senators and representatives on that JMSC are lawyer legislators. So they're picking the judges that they argue in front of. That's like Clemson or USC picking the referees that ref their games. It's a direct conflict of interest. So this has been going on for at least 1995.
Actually, I think it all originates with our Constitution in South Carolina, because we do not have separation of powers. We don't have three distinct branches of government. We have an executive branch and a legislative branch, but we don't have a judicial branch outlined in our Constitution. Basically, it's control. The judges and the judicial branch are controlled by the legislature. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we pick them. We decide the salary and the staff and the whole thing. It's not an independent branch, not really. So the bill we passed yesterday doesn't solve the problem, but it's a solid touchdown. If we're doing sports analogies, it says the governor's going to pick all the members of the JMSC. None of the screening committee can be legislators or their spouses. So it's not like Luke Rankin can put his wife on there. They have to. The idea here is to give the executive branch a substantial level of say-so in the picking of the judges. So it's not just the legislative branch that's doing it. It passed the Senate. It passed the House like 85-25. The Senate is going to be a big question mark. By my count, we're about 22. There's 46 senators. We need 24. So if your listeners want this too, want some co-equal or something approaching co-equal branches of government, call their senator and tell them, you want this JMSC reform. So that's one big issue we've been pushing for years.
But it is a move in the right direction, right? It's like incrementalism, or in quality assurance, we call it Kaizen. Make one small improvement at a time, and head toward the big improvement at the end.
Yeah, we had a little very small improvement about a year and a half ago, where the governor would get to appoint 3 members of the 12-member JMSC. And unfortunately, some senators are trying to hide behind that, saying, "Oh, we did something, we fixed it." It wasn't fixed. That was a 3-yard gain. We're going for the touchdown, but there's still ultimately we need to change the Constitution to make it where it needs to be. So we're still driving in that direction. But so that's the judicial side. From the start, we've said we want to eliminate the income tax in South Carolina. It's immoral and dysfunctional. From those readings that I've done over the years, that y'all have too. Anytime you tax something, you get less of it. So why would we want to tax productivity? We get less. To do that, we got to cut the budget pretty significantly. Unfortunately, our budget since Henry McMaster took over has gone up 124% in the last 9 years. So we're going the wrong direction for that purpose.
We have a way of swearing in our listeners to become libertarians on our show. It's very, very easy. all you have to do is repeat after me and Trip and Randy. All you have to do is say, taxation is theft. Taxation is theft. Taxation is theft. Hey, voila, you're now a libertarian.
For Christmas this year, either my sister or my mom got me a shirt that says, "Don't steal, the government hates competition."
Oh, there you go.
All you have on the desk.
I saw in one of your interviews, you said it might be, I know they do incremental, like 0.1% cuts periodically, but when we were looking the other week, I think only West Virginia had a higher top rate income tax by like 0.1% in the Southeast. And I guess it's supposed to go down a little bit lower, or it's projected to anyway, to like 5.7% or something. But
5.9, yeah.
5.9. Is there a reason? What is the dynamic with the Freedom Caucus and the establishment Republicans, where we're surrounded by all these zero income tax southern states like Tennessee and Florida and Texas, all these businesses, and people are flooding there from other parts of the country, and we still have this huge Titanic income tax.
On top of that, the obstacles that he must be facing with the establishment forces that influence by special, special interests that fund the elections of certain people. The history of heavy-handed leadership, aka like Leatherman used to have. You've got these special interest groups that are so strong, like the bar associations, development companies, realty associations, big insurance, and even corporations like Boeing. I mean, these are obstacles you have to battle just about every time you get onto the stairs in Columbia.
Episode 1 of Microphone Monkeys drops this Thursday, January 15th. If you are into sadism, or just pain in general, tune in on your favorite podcast platform like Spotify or Apple Podcast and more.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when Steve mentioned earlier that we have two branches of government, usually I quibble with that. And so we do have three branches of government. We have the executive, the legislative, and the lobbyist branch.
Yeah.
And it's the lobbyist branch that makes most of the decisions.
Is there a way, do you have any ideas or ways that we can start restraining the lobbyist branch?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, could you share those with us, please?
Yeah. So I was doing some digging in the the ethics and stuff, laws last year, and I ran across a very strange, it's got to be unique amongst South Carolina, rule. They're deep in Title 13 in the ethics laws. The last thing in that title is a list of exemptions. So things that are not considered something of value. And it's stuff like pens and hats and honorary degrees, things less than $10. But the last thing on that list said legally reported campaign contributions are not considered something of value in South Carolina. So what does that mean?
Wow.
That means a lobbyist could come to you, could come to me, or a senator, anywhere outside of the state house grounds, literally across the street from the state house, and say, hold a box of $1,000 checks, all from different entities, different LLCs, and say, Mr. Representative, if you go vote, this way on this bill, and come back over here, I'll give you this box of checks.
And it's
They're all from
perfectly
different
legal.
LLCs, and it's 100% legal.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to
what that means.
it goes back to one of the first influencers I had in there was Bar Association.
Mm-hmm. Which has at least 6 LLCs that I know about.
Yeah.
That it donates money from. With the guy who's the chairman of the Port Authority has 111 different LLCs that he donates to the state house members from. He paid for the whole the first gala, like inauguration gala for the governor many years ago. He paid for the whole thing himself. I'm sure that was just purely out of selfless patriotism. But you're right. It is an ongoing battle. It's I think getting better because of technology, because it's easier to look this stuff up and expose it.
Yeah.
And from my experience, people just get fed up. The more they learn, the more fed up they get.
Talking about people getting fed up, but one of the other major issues for most residents of South Carolina is our roads.
Mm-hmm.
Our roads basically are substandard, and we had a tax. We actually had a gas tax a few years ago that was going to solve that problem.
Yeah.
What
So
is the Freedom Caucus? What do you think about the roads in South Carolina?
they're bad. I mean, there's no question around it. They're objectively terrible. And I think, Steve, that's how we met. Maybe originally, we really got to know each other, was fighting that gas tax for 2 or 3 years.
Right,
They
fighting the
actually got
gas
it in.
tax.
The biggest 3 reasons the roads suck in South Carolina is the state DOT maintains too many roads. And we're number 4 or 5 in the country of state-controlled miles of road.
Wow.
I think we're at like 41,000 or so total road miles. To give you a comparison on that, the state of Florida, which is pretty significantly bigger than us, but population and geography-wise, their DOT controls about 12,500.
Yeah, a lot of county trunks in Florida.
Yes. And of those 41,000 miles that our DOT controls, more than 10,000 of those miles are half-mile increments or less.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So there's these little, stubs of roads spread out around the state that DOTs are charging. So in Berkeley County, where I live, we've spent probably close to $700 million from a penny tax the last 12 years on only state roads to get them usable. That
Wow.
the county's done all the work of. So step one, we filed a bill to do this, is to take all those half-mile increments of roads and send them to the counties for the counties to maintain, along with a portion of the gas tax to pay for those roads. So it's not sending the counties for them to raise their property taxes to pay for them. We got the money, we just don't have the
Infrastructure.
It's too centralized. Right. It's
Yeah.
too centralized for it to work. So we filed a bill to do that. Unfortunately, the leadership and all of their wisdom, they put together a DOT reform bill. It's going through the Ways and Means Committee. 18,000 words. It is a monster of a bill. And one of the portions in that says that the county's going to get, quote, non-essential roads. It creates this new bureaucracy that will determine what are essential roads, what are non-essential roads.
Ugh.
And they'll send those non-essential roads to the counties, and rather than send the money with it, it says that it allows the counties to raise their property taxes without a cap. Right now, there's a cap on counties and how much they can raise property taxes from it was Act 388 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So this lists that cap. It says counties, you can raise their property taxes as much as you feel like you need to.
It seems like it cracks me up and also angers me when we've got the Dixiecrat Republicans accusing liberty-minded people like you of being rhinos.
Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
But it didn't work. I mean, they sent mailers. I think the 3rd week I was in the State House, I voted against the ARPA money and the Biden bucks from COVID era. They wanted to drop hundreds of millions of dollars to various things that they wanted to do. And we had a concern about corruption and that legislators were going to make a bunch of money off of this stuff. And it turns out we were right, and I got the proof that we were right. But when I voted against that, I got a mailer and a text in my district. This is a monthly session, my first month, saying that I voted against infrastructure and I was a rhino and all this other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't want to spend money frivolously from Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Is this tied into, are there any House members on any standing committees? I know the interview you did a year or 2 ago, it was where there were 0. and they can, block all momentum of any bills you introduce?
Yeah, the two main committees that like 90% of the bills that we hear come through. I say 90. That's probably an exaggeration. Probably 60% are Judiciary and Ways and Means. I think Judiciary gets like 30% by itself. They have 500 or 600 bills they're working through right now. They might put out 30 total. Yeah. We have one member on Judiciary, 0 members on Ways and Means, and 0 members on the next biggest committee, which is LCI, Labor, Commerce, and Industry. Yeah, they don't want us on. And there's 17 of us. It's not like there's 3 or 4 of us.
Yeah,
we're growing, and they know it. So,
well,
that's kind of been the thing.
Does the party establishment try to cut off funding for even the remaining members and trying to run other people against them for their seats?
I know the state GOP has paid for pamphlets to on-seat sitting Liberty Caucus representatives. I know that for a fact. Is that true?
So there was an incident with Jonathan Hill. So this is before the Freedom Caucus got started. So probably 2020. Jonathan Hill was a member up in Anderson. A friend of mine, his birthday was a couple days ago.
Disgusting man. Disgusting.
We've had him on the show.
Jonathan, okay, good.
Personal friend, yeah.
They really did not like Jonathan. And yeah, the state party basically used money, I would argue, and illicitly to send mailers against him.
Yeah.
We certainly have had a lot of money spent against us. To my knowledge, none of that has come from the state party or been facilitated by the state party. The party itself has largely stayed out of the intra-caucus warfare for the last few years, up until about a month ago. And we were pushing, one of our priorities is closed primaries, which we've had like 4 ballot questions, ballot, not referendums, but advisory questions over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And 75 to 85% of the people who vote in Republican primaries have said they want closed primaries. They don't want Democrats voting in Republican primaries, which is a real thing. This does happen. So we put up a closed primary bill for the last 13 years. Mike Burns has. Green, gone nowhere. The party put theirs up, which wasn't really closed primaries. It was sort of closed primaries where independents can still vote, and it would block anybody from running in Republican races if they hadn't voted in 2 out of the 3 past Republican primaries. So basically, they were trying to gatekeep the process by which people could run.
Yeah.
So if you didn't sign their loyalty oath, then they would block you from the primaries.
No, that was kind of the not exactly, but that was kind of the implication, right?
Yeah.
Well, good news. When we got into a bit of a tussle with the state party about that, and the chairman of the state party sent text messages and other things blasting those of us who were pushing the actual closed primary bill for not sufficiently supporting closed primaries. Yeah, 3310, which we now filed a new and improved version. It's 5183. Filed it yesterday, right across the desk. That solves. There was a legitimate question about how do you get people registered between now and June in time, and that's a legitimate question for folks in rural parts of the state. So the way we fix that is, and the first time somebody votes in a primary in 2026, they can sign the form, affiliating with one party or the other, whatever party they want to affiliate with, and then can vote right then. So that kind of solves that issue.
Yeah.
So
I think, we're going to try to push that and see if we can get it done before June, so we have a shot at getting rid of Lindsey Graham.
Great. So before we run out of time, I'd like to go to one other topic. We were talking about the roads. Well, South Carolina has such a huge bureaucracy that you can't find people responsible. The money that's supposed to be going for fixing roads goes for maintaining the bureaucracy. So basically, the size and scope of the South Carolina government is out of control. What can the Freedom Caucus do to have limited government to reduce the size and scope of the South Carolina government?
Yeah, I didn't finish we were talking about the roads. So we got too many roads. There's no accountability. So we want to put the lieutenant governor, like by statute, in charge of the roads themselves. The idea there is there's someone to hold accountable that we all vote for, and to use, this is very much from the free market mindset. You want to use people's selfish ambitions for your own benefit. So if they're the lieutenant governor, they very likely want to be governor and to do a good job with roads. That's their means of, kind of going up the ladder. If they're bad at their job, they're not going to be governor. So that's one side, and then cutting the regulatory state. Something like 2/3 of all the regulations around roads for the contractors are not connected to any particular statute. They're just made up. So eliminating that. That's kind of part and parcel of your question, though, Steve. Like, how do we shrink the government in general? The only way to shrink the government is to shrink the budget. So last year we put up over 100 amendments to cut things in the budget. Not many of those passed, sadly. This year we're going to do something very similar, maybe even amp it up quite a bit, to prove the point that the only way to actually shrink government, which is what all the Republicans campaign on, is to stop spending so much money and return that money to the people.
Good idea.
That's what grows the government, is other people's money.
Yeah, we have Randy. He's our legislative affairs chairman for the state Libertarian Party, and he's got a few questions for you.
I just one quick. I know it's coming right up on about 30 minutes. We try to track the probability of bills that affect liberty, positive or negative. Mm-hmm. I know 2 of them that recently passed was a South Carolina Social Media Regulation Act that has sweeping controls over social media, and there was a good one, a dismissal of pending gun possession charges on pre-constitutional carry stuff. Are there any bills currently ramping through the chambers that would be a priority for activism? When we do this, it's to send to activist groups inside and outside of the Libertarian Party. And we noticed that there's a hemp-derived ingestibles one, another children and social media one coming, that income tax bill. But are there any off the top of your head that are nasty bills that activism
we
should
can't
jump
talk
on?
too much about that hemp bill because my head will explode.
Well, let's talk about the one that's probably the most, the one that has the highest propensity to pass that's bad, and it's 4216. This is
blue collar tax.
House leadership. Correct. The House called it a tax cut, and again, heavy quotation marks there. The original version would have raised taxes on 70% of the state. We rang the alarm bells about it. They put the brakes on it and, quote, fixed it. Now it only raises taxes on 24% of the state, and it's primarily those that make between $100,000 and $300,000 a year, as a family income.
There you go. That's a Republican thing. Tax the rich.
Yeah, right. Or tax the middle class.
Yeah.
So
Hill calls that the blue collar.
It's the working class tax hike. What I'm trying to make is call your senator. That it is in the Senate. It is on the House. It is on the Senate floor next week to be debated, and the Senate can fix it. All they got to do to fix it is skip to phase 2 of the bill, where it lowers everybody's taxes, but it costs the state about $1 billion to do it. Well, the good news is we have a $2 billion surplus, so they tell us. So instead of spending that on orangutan exhibits and podcasts for the Football Hall of Fame, we could spend that on lowering everybody's taxes.
Or giving another $50 million to Scout Motors for a plant that hasn't produced anything to date.
Oh, I lost you there, Steve.
Or $150 million.
Oh, it was what was it, a subsidy to Scout Motors in $3 billion to, just more, earmarked.
Corporate fare.
Funny.
Okay, well, Representative Pace, it's been very informative, and I'm really glad that we could have you on the show.
Y'all are cutting in and out real bad. I think I might be losing you.
Oh, okay. Well,
There you are.
I'm gonna wrap it up here. So, hopefully we'll have talk to you at another later date. But it's been really good having a conversation with you today, and I hope our listening audience can appreciate the uphill battle that Freedom Caucus representatives have in our state legislature. It appears that protecting and preserving our inalienable rights as citizens has taken a back burner in Columbia to crony capitalism and protecting the special interest lobbies. As Representative Pace, that third branch of the South Carolina government. If we ever want to have a true representative government, we need more people like Jordan Pace and members of the Freedom Caucus. During our next episode, we're going to have Dr. Veronica Collins return and continue our conversation on medical freedom, specifically the COVID-19 pandemic and the war on ivermectin. So thanks for listening, and now a word from our glorious leader, the executive producer of Liberty Crack Media, Trip Detmering.
All right, listeners, that's been another episode of Conversations with the Hoff. And if you want to know more about Jordan Pace, about the Freedom Caucus, or any of the other things that we discussed in our show, look at the show notes or visit libertycrackmedia.com for more information. And so, till next week, I want to say goodbye to everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Pull up a chair, lean in close. Got a question in a black coffee glow. From campus quads to the Capitol steps, we're talking who we are, what comes next. Conversations with the Hoff, where the big ideas kick the shoes off. Liberty tradition, side by side, argue, laugh, then let it ride. Conversations with the Hoff, turn it up and turn it over in your mind. Tax to the hill or left alone. How much power do we loan? Rights on paper, rights in hand. Where do we draw that line in the sand? Conversations with a Hoff, where the big ideas kick their shoes off. Liberty tradition, side by side, argue, laugh, and let it ride. Conversations with the Hoff, turn it up and turn it over in your mind. Is it either or in between? Old school roots and a freedom dream. Pull that thread, see what you find. One more question, we're out of time. Conversations with the Hoff, where the big ideas kick the shoes off. Liberty tradition, side by side, argue, laugh, then let it ride. Conversations with the Hoff, hit subscribe and take a little time to think it through.